Eric Show.
Welcome to the show. He was on his way to university, but there came some issues that he needed to face. Gemmar McFarlane is here with us today on the Eric Show. Gemmar, how are you doing?
I'm good.
Yeah. My brother, what is the story that you want to share today?
I didn't expect to be asked that. Boy, I just have to say a story of how simple knowledge and education in a particular subject can change not just somebody's perception, but a family, a community, a country. I think if we had a little more not even education or just simple talk, simple understanding, a lot of people's lives would be much easier.
Right. But a lot of people, they would just shy away from having a conversation as such. Yeah. Why it is important to you now to talk about it publicly?
Yeah. For me, it's just preventing somebody else that could be in my position experiencing what I had to experience, and hopefully more and more people in my position can have better and better experiences as we go along, as I talk more, as I let more people know that, hey, you know, some people are going through things that will have them behave in a way that you wouldn't understand, and you don't have to make it any much harder. They're not a threat to you, right? Because in my experience, just the little information that we have, we're perceived as a threat, people with my issues. So
what was your behavior that was diagnosed?
So my mental illness, as they say, is bipolar type 1. And bipolar has two types. So you have type 1, type 2. Type 1 is the manic side of things. That's where you get a lot of energy, you'll have emotional mood swings. It can be more extreme. Like in my case, you could have hallucinations, delusions of grandeur. And then you have type 2, which is more depressive. So that's somebody that swings on the lower end of the spectrum. They're more depressed, they're sad, they have less energy, less motivation to get up and do things. So what bipolar is really is a chemical imbalance in the brain that causes a person to swing between two extremes. Their brain isn't regulating balance. So we're not perceiving our stimuli properly, we're not reacting properly. Whatever we perceive, our brain is amplifying it, and we're responding in amplified ways. So we can come off more intense, especially on the manic side, we can come off more intense, more energetic, and in a culture like ours, especially as men, it's perceived as a threat. It's perceived as aggression, especially somebody of my stature. Somebody like me come at you with a lot of energy, you're going to want to fight. And that was my experience, that like I had an experience like that where I was in an episode, you know, at a bar, middle of the night, nobody knew me, so they didn't know this is not a regular troublesome youth, that's not how he normally is. And them end up just completely shell out my jaw, just like took a piece of board and just went to town because they were so threatened that their natural response was to fight. So I ended up in hospital, metal plate in my jaw, everything, and I'm just like, whoa, I think if these youths simply knew, hey, something is up, this is how you react to it, this is how you get that person help, there would be no need for.
And when this is when you're in a moment of such, there's no. Are you cognizant of it? Do you try to control it? What's really happening? What's the struggle?
All right, let me try and explain. So, if you're not on any treatment, if you don't have anything regulating this chemical imbalance, then you're at the mercy of your triggers. So, common triggers for somebody in bipolar is like stress, an intense working environment. You're not eating, you're not sleeping, because we're prone to push our body past certain limits. So any normal person that goes without sleep for a number of days will devolve into psychosis. So we naturally don't want to sleep. It feels like death for us. So we're going, getting all these ideas, you know, drinking our own Kool-Aid, as we say, or your brain is basically getting high on its own supply of endorphins and all these chemicals that are pumping you full of energy, and you don't know what to do with it. And you know, you end up, let's say you end up more exuberant about life. So the intentions may be there. For example, an example of a delusion of grandeur is you may think you're some kind of messiah. You have this great creative idea and you think it's going to change the world, and then you need people around you that know you're normal and know what is you from what is not you, and what to clamp down and say, hey, take your meds, sleep, eat. My psychiatrist literally prescribed me simply sleeping, eating, resting once as just treatment.
And how do you manage it? How do you manage it?
That's the thing, you manage it with treatment. So you get your diagnosis, and you will usually, it's an illness that can be majorly solved with medication. So the heavy lifting is done by the correction of the chemical imbalance. So it doesn't cure it, but it acts as a kind of a surge protector. So if you get a trigger, the thunderstorm won't go off in your brain. You're mellow. Somebody like me would have a higher heart rate, for example. I would, my heart would be beating. I could get a stroke for how fast my brain is moving, how fast my body is moving. So the medication helps to regulate that. And then you have light therapy, talking through issues, making sure stress is down, you're sleeping, family and friends watching you, and you're good. So if I didn't tell you, you wouldn't know that I have it, because I'm on my treatment, and it's very manageable, but I don't think it's curable. They're not at a place in the studies where it's curable. So it's like a lifelong thing. So it's a lifestyle change that you have to undergo.
How does it affect your regular day-to-day or your life? Does it affect any aspect of your life that you've always wanted? How?
It affects everything.
Yeah.
You literally have to, I had to grow up very quickly, as you preface the show. The illness shows itself up most in periods of adolescence or coming of age, because that's when your hormones are pumping.
Yeah.
So that's when it's going to activate.
At what age you first recognized it?
So probably around 15, 16, like going into sixth form, when I was going to matriculate onto university, is when they saw the first signs, the first episode. And you don't know Jamaican people, so we thought it was demon possession, because my parents are, in the church. My father's a pastor. And that was at the time when we just didn't know any better.
Right, exactly. You had no idea of what's happening.
Yeah.
How did it manifest itself as a teenager?
So as a teenager now, my case was particularly severe. So I would have hallucinations. I'd be seeing things, hearing things that weren't there. The illness latches on to ideology. So I was a devout Christian at the time. So mine manifested in, acts that would be considered demonic.
And getting visions?
Right. You'd see things that weren't there. All of a sudden you think you have powers. I'd look at a clock, and all of a sudden it stopped, and then everybody around me has frozen. But that's not what happened. It's just my brain is perceiving that. It's changing reality, my perceived reality, which is very dangerous, because even if not hallucination, delusions of grandeur, which is a thing where you get an idea that is so far removed from reality, like you can get up and say, I should be the prime minister, and I'm going to go to parliament, and I'm going to, disrupt it. And somebody like me will not see that as a terrible idea. I'll go and do it. I'll say, all right, when it's parliament keeping, all right, boom, I go rush past the security, them type of thing there.
All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, I want to talk about some of the experiences that you have had. All right, so we take a break. When we come back, we continue our conversation with Gemmar. Welcome back to the show. We're having a conversation with Gemmar on type 1 bipolar disorder. So you're explaining to me that you will have great imaginations and visions and ideas of being great and want to do things. Can you take me into some of the episodes that you can recall?
Sure. I mean, it's quite dramatic, actually. So I'll give you an example. Once I thought I had the powers of a werewolf. I thought I could run faster. I thought that in the night, I had the ability to transform and become more physical. So one night I got up and I said, the full moon is out. I'm gonna test my physical abilities. I'm gonna run straight from Spanish Town to Kingston. And I did. Now, not run straight, but walk, jog, but I did not stop once, because I put it in my head that I could do that.
And you were still living with your parents then?
Yeah, so imagine my parents wake up and in the middle of the night, them's on gone, But it's just to show you the power of an idea in the mind. I simply thought I could, and my body was like, all right, let's do this to the best of our ability. And that was a night where if they didn't catch me, I could have had a stroke, because my body is going past the normal limits. I'm not processing fear properly. It's the middle of the night, Spanish Town.
Yeah.
Not processing fear, not processing pain, tiredness. The more tired I feel, the stronger I feel, because my brain is interpreting it as, no man, this breathlessness is just a part of the power that you have. Keep going. For somebody like me, if I end up in a fight and I'm injured, if I get shot, I'll just keep going. So it's kind of like a superpower in a way. Some people might think of it that way, where you're removing the normal limiters your brain has to protect yourself because of your limitations as a human being.
Did it cause you to feel as if your parents were like against you?
Yes, definitely. especially going through that first episode when they were saying, it's demon possessed and all that sort of thing. It tries to alienate you, get you away from your family and friends because you feel nobody understands you. You're this special person. You're going through all these unique things and they don't understand these abilities or whatever. But that is a strong theme of, loneliness and segregating yourself from people.
You are a devout Christian, or you were?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm more, I hear what people say, but I'm more spiritual now.
You're more spiritual.
Right.
Why you say you're more spiritual?
Spirituality, the construct of religion for me, I find it very overbearing and sometimes more destructive and constructive at times when, we try and force our beliefs or, we have this amazing thing that we want to share, the greatness of God and spirituality, but then we are going to, as the Spanish did, come and enslave an entire country and beat it into them, quite literally. So I find religion dangerous. For me, it's more be in tune with your spirituality and your relationship with God and let that, flow outwards rather than, try and conform or, judge people and bring them into a space where they are to be condemned and completely reformed and become something new. I think come as you are, as Jesus would have said, and, let the light shine. Whereas I find with even other religions that aren't Christianity, because I'm still on a path searching, what is the truth. I feel like most religions are trying to describe the same experience.
Right.
The same spiritual experience. We've experienced a divinity, and some people say it was Muslim or Islam, some people say it was Christianity, some people say Jesus or Muhammad, but, I think there's a commonality.
Yeah. What is your definition of God now?
Tough one. Boy, I lick me to them, man. My definition of God is, I like the omniscience and the belief that he's in all things. He's omnipotent, all-seeing. He's in nature. He's in all of us. It makes sense for a God to be like that and be above our understanding, not this humanoid figure that's kind of sitting on the clouds and, peering down and saying, what's going on down there? Let me fix Lebanon, but ignore Africa. I don't think that's what's going on.
Right.
And I think free will is an important consideration. The God that I believe we are serving understands our unique makeup as human beings, our intelligence and our free will, and won't judge us for certain things because he has let us, walk our path.
Right. When were you diagnosed with type 1 disorder and how did it happen?
So I was diagnosed going into sixth form at Ireland High when the symptoms started showing. I'm getting all these ideas, talking rather quickly, not making sense, saying I'm seeing angels or I can freeze time.
And it manifested at school as well.
Yeah,
what were the children saying?
People would notice because, I would say I'm a good actor in that way. I could keep it together. You wouldn't know I'm going through an entire psychotic break. But because of how open-minded I am, I'm like, all right, the place has frozen. Let me just wait this out. So probably what people would see is me just like still. So it's hard to pinpoint. It's not like all the time you're going to see somebody in a manic rage, angry, emotional. I think that's the typical view of the illness. But it's so much more complex and nuanced where it can simply be somebody sitting down, not responding properly or simply speaking normally like I am now, but I'm saying ideas that are pretty outlandish. Like I'm saying, did you know that we're all kings of queens of a secret order bent on improving the world through destruction? And you'd be like, he sounds intelligent, but I'm absolutely not making sense. So, it's a deceptive illness and it's hard to pinpoint until it gets extreme. So until I'm jumping off a building, you wouldn't know.
Can this manifest itself as a form of abuse in relationships as well?
I think so because, I grew up with a strong father figure, so I could tell if I'm getting emotional or angry in my past relationships, I know how to deal with it. But I can see how somebody that doesn't have that upbringing would feel that as a bipolar person. And the emotions can feel 200%, 500% more than it actually is. I can see somebody getting physical, as I felt within myself, to be honest. And if you're not sure in yourself, you find yourself becoming abusive. Not to say that, bipolar people are inherently abusive, but it's just a wider conversation about, people in general, how we teach young men, especially, to deal with their emotions.
For the diagnosis, when you're actually diagnosed, Can you recall your reaction now that, you know, it is coming into context and you know, and for your parents as well?
Yeah. What was that diagnosis like? It was a very emotional time. Everybody was at their wits' end because for all our learnings as adults, none of us knew this thing. My father had to go through learning. My mother had to go through learning. Everybody in my community had to learn about this new thing now. It's bipolar disorder. You know, so you first go through denial. You're just like, I'm fine. It's just maybe I was going through a period of stress, because after you come off of the high,
you're
completely normal. So
right.
you assume, okay, you can come off the meds now, because we're very, you know, skeptical of medication, not only because of how dangerous science has been in the past. You know, previously they had lobotomies as treatment, but you know, taking a medication every day that going through your liver, you're gonna want to not do that for very long. But so we went through a period of denial and, you know, saying it's more a spiritual thing, until eventually we say, okay, every time he comes off the meds, he's gone.
So there were a lot of praying and...
A lot of praying, and which I would still encourage.
Sure, definitely. But there was more,
aspect,
but there was a need for more help.
There was a need for more education, more help, more on the scientific side of things. You also need to bolster that.
All right, so we want to talk about therapy.
Sure.
When we get back from this break. All right, so more with Gemmar right after this. Welcome back to the show. We're talking with Gemmar McFarlane on bipolar disorder, a condition that is not usually talked about in Jamaica and is often misunderstood. Yeah?
Yeah.
For you, how do you manage now? Are you on medication?
Yes, I've been probably about 2 years or so without an episode, and that's a testament to modern medicine, mainly, and self-management. A lot of it is understanding myself, my triggers, what is too much work for me, what's too much stress, when to take a break, because, you know, in the creative industries, we'll just go, and I'm particularly prone to that because I can stay up longer than the average person. So it's really, you know, monitoring my lifestyle, living very predictably often. Some people might call it lame, but you know, staying out and partying, drinking, smoking, I can't really be doing much of any of that because I have to live a very controlled lifestyle and make sure I don't go off the rails.
What would be the manifestations for you if you're not on managing well, on medication or otherwise?
If I'm missing doses, if I'm stressed, if I'm not sleeping, you'll see more irritability. Somebody that is snapping for no reason, is responding emotionally to objectively logical conversation. You're taking offense easily. You're all of a sudden, you know, crying or inflating an issue. And it can be less obvious. It can just be, I'm not sleeping and I'm doing that for an extended period of time, or I'm not eating. And it's a slope. So when you see me get there, it's a sign that I could get further. So it's really kind of like a takeoff. And then after a certain point, I'm gone and I'm not really aware. Like, I'm aware, but I'm not all there. It's going to be up to the people around me to kind of bring me back down.
So you have a responsibility to self.
Before that point, that's all me.
Yeah.
After that, that's everybody else. So it's a huge responsibility, especially as an adult. It's no excuse to not go after your dreams. Obviously, you're still
right. For your friends, how do they operate around you? Do they understand it?
Yeah. And it's really not that difficult. They don't even know the major science. They just need to know, say, yo, Gemmar need to take him meds, need to sleep, he need to eat, and he need to play a ball game on Sunday and keep fit. That's it. Call me every once in a while and say, yo, brother, how you stay? You sleep, you take your meds. You know, say, I miss a dose and work. I say, John, brother, you know, say, I can't do that. Say, I sleep tomorrow.
What do you
Simple
do?
as that.
What do you do in terms of a job?
I am a filmmaker. I was full-time entrepreneur before that. I was running my own little small production company, doing odd videos here and there, until I was hired by a company called IPP. And I started as a video editor there, and then they saw more potential in me, so I became a director, and then I became head of their studios division. So that's where I am now, you know.
Are you looking to tell stories around bipolar disorder?
Yes, or not specifically bipolar, but what I want to do is kind of bend people's perception. So my genre would be like a psychological thriller. I want to kind of tinker with the mind. You know, directors like Christopher Nolan who, you know, experiment with concepts of time and morality and stuff like that. So I would be really just delving into issues of the mind, how we're perceiving the world around us, how one person's perception can change, how reality isn't what we think it is. It's simply just us responding to stimuli, and if a man's chemical imbalance act up, him can, be going off, he can become manic, he can feel suicidal. So I really want to delve into those issues that we don't really talk about in an entertaining way. I don't want it to be a depressing,
true,
hour-long documentary. He's sad. No, I want it to be like an action movie.
Right. As it relates to therapy, how necessary is that for you to manage?
Yeah. Well, luckily for me, I require very little amounts of therapy. Checking with my psychiatrist every now and then, but I'm at a point where I can self-manage. My psychiatrist have a joke: when he doesn't hear from me, he knows I'm doing good.
Yeah.
But it's something everybody should be doing. It's not only for mad people. Anybody can walk in and say, I've been having a particularly rough go of it, and my bills are high, I'm extremely stressed, I'm feeling sad. Walk in and talk to a therapist. You don't know what you could uncover, the trauma that could be in your past that's causing you to respond like this when you're under stress. Everybody at some point in time can be prone to developing a mental illness, even, or developing a mental altercation by simply neglecting that side of them, because we're so focused on making money and eating, and we forget to nourish our mind as well.
Yeah. For people who don't understand the disorder, and they might look on somebody and say, listen, they're just mad. What do you say to them what can they look for to try to understand and to try to get that person help?
Yeah, well, first I approach them with a bit of empathy, because it's really, they don't know any better. I was there, and I'm one of the mad people. So
People literally called you mad. Did they?
No, I've never experienced that. But even after my illness, my struggles, I catch myself saying, "Oh, look, there's a madman." I'm saying, "Well, that's the culture in me. That's a lack of consciousness." It's really just getting these people to understand. Just teach them. Just make them know.
All right. So, Gemmar, I want to thank you so very much for sharing. Sharing about bipolar disorder. Yeah. We're talking about it now. Yeah. Very important, because mental illness in Jamaica is still stigmatized. Yeah. So thank you so much for sharing with us, and I do appreciate it. Yeah, the key to overcoming your struggle is to own it, accept it. These are steps to take action to become so much better. I'm Alric McKenzie. Thank you for joining us. And just before we go, Gemmar will take us out with a song. Boy, everything's them forget, I'll show you one that happened after an episode, and it was kind of like an apology and a re-entrance into I'm gonna live this life. So here goes. I'm sorry about the times I said I was fine, I was lying. My life is a raging fire. See, I would act okay, but I was feeling pain, 'cause me and my own brain would fight. I'm sorry for disrupting, publicly interrupting, bringing dark things to light. But this is my affliction, emotional decisions, fueled by my sleepless nights. 'Cause I was off my medication, full of frustration. I said, how could I be crazy? This led to my own demise, my own demise. I think it's medication time. Thank you very much. Yeah, man, thank you so very much. Right. The Alric Show will be back next week. Alric Show.